Deputy Murphy, he will answer your questions. Have you any to add to the original?
No, but the ones specifically, because some of them have been answered because the others have raised some similar things, but in relation to the commitment that was made in the Dáil here by the Taoiseach that no woman would have to go to court, yet we're continuously seeing court cases. I think it's important that there is an understanding about what the state can and can't do in relation to court cases. For example, whether or not they have the legal standing, for example, to take a court case against, for example, the labs. I think that's important that we get some understanding of why that commitment was made and why that commitment is not followed through. Second thing, you've mentioned something about the ex gratia payment. Timing is really important for some of the women in terms of not even having the money to have their slides independently tested. And it's going to be important that that is put in place without a delay. And securing alternative doctors, was there an expectation or a reasonable expectation that that would be done if somebody has had a loss of confidence with a consultant and can't secure another one? Well, then it's a real issue for someone that is in a situation where they're very worried about their health.
Minister, to conclude.
So I think the Taoiseach has spoken himself, and I don't wish to put words in his mouth in relation to why he and I and everyone else said what we wanted to say in relation to trying to find alternatives to the court process. I think you're right. I think it did turn out to be very complex. Obviously, people have a constitutional right as well that can't be infringed upon, and as you also pointed out, there are parties that aren't the state involved in that. So we've since obviously brought in the very eminent Judge Charles Meenan to try and come up with an alternative. I think he did come up with a good alternative. It's never been done before in Ireland that you'd set up an adjudicative tribunal in relation to this. We had, like, let's say, the Hep C compensation tribunal, but that was different. There wasn't an issue of potential negligence and the likes that had to be demonstrated. So that is our response to trying to provide alternatives to the court system. You're entirely right about the ex gratia scheme. One of the reasons I'm going ahead with the ex gratia scheme is a recognition that it will take time, not too long I hope, but time to set up the Meenan Tribunal, to draft the legislation, to pass the legislation. We've obviously identified the judge and Judge Mary Irvine. So I would hope that this is a scheme that I could have up and running within weeks. I expect to go to Cabinet this month, the month of February, to seek approval for that scheme and to appoint the retired judge. And the idea here is that it's not compensation, and it's nothing that in any way interferes with any woman's right to go to court or to pursue things legally or anything like that, or indeed to access the tribunal in due course. It's a recognition that you weren't disclosed to, and the impact of that non-disclosure is something that the state, regardless of the law, has a moral liability, I believe, to address. On the issue of the changing of the doctors, I'm glad you raised this. People in the 221 Plus group raised it with me directly when I met them last Thursday. My understanding is that the HSE will do everything it possibly can to find people an alternative consultant or an alternative doctor, where, as you say, there may be trust broken down or completely lost at this stage, and often for good reason. That's being done, I'm informed, through the liaison officers. I do believe, and I picked this up anecdotally from my conversations, that it's worked very well. The conversations some women have had with their liaison officers, perhaps not as well in other cases. If there are specific cases, we can escalate it to the National Director and the HSE overseeing it, but it is the liaison officer that the woman should have a conversation with in the first instance.